But speaking of getting to see things a little early in your reaction to things, let's take a quick detour here from Super Chats. We will get back to him though. But we got to know, you've seen Andor,
I have seen the first 4 episodes. Yes,
or at least the first 4 episodes.
first 4 episodes. I mean, I can't really give a full review, but I can give you my reaction to the first 4.
Yeah, let's have it.
Well, one, I'm kind of mixed on this because it is so. I'm mixed on this for this reason, and let me just go through it real quick. It's the most adult Star Wars I think that's we've ever seen. It's probably the best thing that Disney or Lucasfilm has put out, and that's a low bar. I think we would all agree that's probably a very low bar. It's extremely different than anything that Disney Lucasfilm has ever put out in terms of a Star Wars product. This is not for kids. There's no quippy jokes or humor. There are some moments of levity, but there's no jokes or humor. There's not even anything cute. There is a droid in this series. It's like what's the name of the droid? It's like B8 Emo or something, and it's not funny. It's not for laughs. It's just sort of a practical droid, like an appliance. The whole thing is played very seriously. I mean, the story kind of kicks off with Cassian Andor. You kind of meet him as a young boy. He's on a planet that's been plundered and mined to death, and sort of what his story. So the first episodes kind of tell one story. I don't know why they broke it up into 3 episodes. It should have just been one 90-minute or 100-minute premiere. But you kind of meet him as a young boy and kind of how he his story and kind of why he's got a big chip on his shoulder. He's involved in a murder of 2 gentlemen, and then becomes the subject of a murder investigation, not by the Empire, but by this corporation that you'll see that most of the characters that we meet are all blue collar workers building what looks to be starships. They don't exactly reveal, but they're all working on starships. So it's kind of interesting that you see, like, these are just regular people in the galaxy, and they're all basically working in factories. Okay. And then it's also, in terms of look, I'll talk about the design a little bit. Like, it really is an interesting bridge between the prequels and the original trilogy. You'll see things that are very prequel inspired, or that are junk, right? And things that are kind of getting us toward, there are TIE fighters. There's sort of a hybrid between clone troopers and stormtroopers. It's blending of those, and it's played completely dead seriously. Stellan Skarsgård is very good as kind of a guy with he has a duplicitous role, as do most of the characters in the film. And then when we actually see Coruscant, and we meet members of the Empire. You're kind of meeting people, like, you meet the blue collar workers, then you meet the middle management of the Empire, right? And I will say this, the casting is fantastic. Like, they really have great actors for this. Like, you're not going to complain about the acting in this. Like, great character actors, British accents all over the place, like, which I love. That just feels Star Wars to me. But I think that this series is going to be very divisive. It's not for kids. The tone of it kind of felt like reading a Star Wars novel. And I do think it's slow paced. It is a slow burn. I mean, I think it's really smart that they're dropping the first 3 episodes, on day 1, which I believe I think it's Wednesday, actually. So Wednesday, the 21st, the first 3 episodes drop.
Yeah, we're like 61 and a half hours away from it actually dropping.
Right. So, okay, there you go. There's a countdown clock. But I will say that, like, Rings of Power, which I think is terrible, might be the biggest disaster, in entertainment history. If you remember or even know what Heaven's Gate is, that was probably the biggest disaster up until now. And I think that Rings of Power is going to take that place. Rings of Power is slow, and I don't care. Andor is slow moving, and I'm actually invested. So I want to see what happens with Cassian. He the first story is kind of his fleeing from the law, and then it delves into, by the 4th episode, it becomes a heist that is in the works. You also meet Mon Mothma on Coruscant, and she pulls up in this. She has a driver and pulls up in this vehicle that totally looks like it's something out of 30s pre-war 1930s Germany. Like it just had that vibe to it. And Coruscant is not a colorful place. It's very dour now. And so I don't want to reveal too much story, obviously no spoilers, but this I believe will divide. It's going to like typical a new Star Wars thing. People will be divided. But I think what is going to surprise people a lot,
much like the universe.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's going to divide fans. I will say this: as I looked at like the 4 episodes and I watched it, I'm like, okay, if they didn't have certain starships, this could just be generic sci-fi show. Meaning, the way that I know that it's Star Wars is because there are TIE fighters, right? There are certain types of vehicles. There's certain types of language that is spoken. They're talking about the Empire, right? There are certain costumes, okay. But if you strip that away, it could easily have been a different sci-fi series. So I just wonder how fans are going to take that. It's so different than anything. It's more serious. Everything is more seriously taken than even Rogue One, which had humor. Rogue One had humor, moments of levity and whatnot. There's just almost this thing is completely humorless. So it doesn't, I think that part of Star Wars is a mix of a lot of different things, and they've extracted that out. No kid is going to like this show. I can't imagine any child. There's nothing, like I say, there's nothing cute in the show. So I'm just like, it is a slow burn. I forget how many episodes is the first. Is it 12 for season 1? They've committed to 2 seasons. I think it's 25 episodes. So you'll have to correct me. Maybe the chat can correct me, or I could use Google.
I can't remember offhand, but yeah.
I can't remember offhand, but like, I'm really curious how everyone else will react to this, because I think it's like, okay, you want Star Wars for adults? Okay, we're going to do that. And here it is. And it is familiar territory in the sense that we've seen heist movies before. We've seen, and it's by the producers of the Bourne Identity films, right?
Are these hour episodes or half-hour episodes?
They're about 30 to 40 minutes, depending. So,
okay.
Yeah. So I actually like that aspect, that it's like, okay, it's shorter. It's not, Kenobi to me is the penultimate worst thing that Disney Lucasfilm has ever made Star Wars. Not only just the most disappointing, the absolute embarrassingly bad. And I know I joke about chairs. Okay. Let me just say this. This might be the best production design we've seen since Disney took over in terms of new starships, worlds. There's not, they may have shot some of this in the volume, but it doesn't feel like it. It feels very vast. It feels.
Well, this was shot almost like 2 years ago, I think, too.
Yeah, it feels.
A lot of it was
practical sets, like stuff we haven't seen. It's also gritty. You know how people praised the original Star Wars in 1977. Hey, it's a science fiction world where things are rusty and dirty and banged up. This is like the worst of that, like junkyards and things like this is basically kind of the leftovers of, the Clone Wars and garbage. Everything just looks dirty and garbage and whatever. There are other things that are missing in it. There are no, I wouldn't say that they play any identity politics. It's a very diverse cast, but they're all really good. It's all organic. It's all like, these are just, and there are no member berries or Easter eggs. At least that I noticed, right? Unless you consider a low-flying TIE fighter an Easter egg. It's not, it's a freaking TIE fighter. It's Star Wars. You're going to see a TIE fighter, So, there's none of that. There's no pandering or what I would call a fan job. There's none of that. And I think that even Grace Randolph complained about it. How come there are no Easter eggs? That's my Grace Randolph imitation. Anyways, I'm really, so whereas the Rings of Power is slow moving and boring and the characters are unlikable, these characters are likable. I'm invested. And it is also at a slow pace. It's a deliberate slow pace and a slow build to, at least in the 3rd episode, some very good action sequences and sort of set up for what's to come. The political intrigue, and it also plays political intrigue because you have the politics. So if you loved the politics in the prequels, this is just filled with that. So what Mon Mothma is doing. You meet Mon Mothma's husband. They're having like a dinner party, and she's concerned about some of the guests showing up, and she has to keep quiet about some of her efforts, and what she's trying to accomplish by basically siphoning funds, siphoning funds toward other things that she would like to see happen, but she has to remain quiet about what she's trying to do. And Stellan Skarsgård's character, it's not fully revealed even by the 4th episode, like what his true motivations are. You meet him, he's kind of mysterious. He's helping set up this heist. So I don't know. Like it's like I say, it's so different. I'm invested and I want to continue watching past the 4th episode. I really want to see where other Star Wars fans, like what their take is, because it's so different than anything. It's no Boba Fett. It's not like Mandalorian. It's definitely not like Kenobi, which I thought was the worst. And back to the chairs thing, there is a shuttle where you see, and the chairs are correct how they would be in a ship of that nature. They're not IKEA chairs just sitting that. No, I mean this, the production design, like whatever you think about this show, holy shit. I wish the production designers on this show had worked on Kenobi. I wish the directors of these episodes had done, if Kenobi was done in this style, and included member berries, it was done as just very dour and depressing. And that's the thing, is the show is very depressing. You're meeting basically the blue collar workers. They're just trying to get by. They're just trying to work a job, just like trying to like stay out of the Empire's way and not get freaking killed, So it's, and I don't think it's dark in the sense of we've seen other things that are dark. It's just it's very realistic. It's the most realistic portrayal of what it might be like to live in the Star Wars universe. And fans, I think, are gonna be split. I really believe fans are gonna be split, and there are gonna be a lot of people that say this doesn't feel like Star Wars BS, or I don't care. But I think it's a huge gamble, I think, on the part of Lucasfilm. And I just wish, like, I'm looking at this, like, why didn't the movies look like as good as this? Why didn't, Kenobi have a dour, serious tone? It was ridiculous. I mean, the Kenobi show is just hot garbage and the worst thing ever to come out of Lucas Disney. It's just,
well, and the reason I was bringing up when it was shot is I have a feeling this might have been in that period when Kathy was off doing other things, like the blood and bones business and stuff. That's what I'm curious about. So, but outside of that, I mean, it sounds interesting, I guess, is the best words I can use. Because out of all the Star Wars films, I guess, looking back in hindsight, the Disney ones, Rogue One's probably the best of them. Right, and as far as the trailers go, they haven't really turned me off completely. And I see where you're coming from on that, but I'm not going to be like, I'm not gonna be running to watch this. This will be another show that I'm avoiding watching with like Beavis and Butthead or something. I can see it already, but yeah,
there's a way for you to see it. See the first 3 episodes. If you're not invested, and I will say this, I was just, like I say, Rings of Power. Why? And it's very interesting. Why is it that I care so little about Galadriel's journey? First of all, I think it's probably because she's unlikable. I mean, she's giving Brie Larson a run for her money. I think that and I think that actress has been, she was in Saint Maud and very good in that, just the Rings of Power is just like, how did this even get released? Why didn't they just say, hey, we've got to stop. We have to stop. Like they stopped production on Toy Story, the first one. So we got to really look at this, because this isn't working. I mean, the Harfoots are the worst. I haven't missed them those past 2 episodes that they haven't been in. I haven't.
No, it was only the last one that they weren't. I regret that they and their foul smell will be back again this week, probably.
Oh God, it's
because I noticed that there's like this pattern that for each episode now it appears that either the Harfoots are there or the dwarfs are there. This last episode we had dwarfs but no Harfoots. Episode before that there were Harfoots but no dwarfs. Right. So maybe they'll keep on alternating the little bit people between the bearded ones and the filthy, stinky ones.
Right. Yeah. It's just interesting that it's like the pacing on that show and you're not invested, and this story you're invested. I think there's something to do with like building characters that you care about and you meet. I don't I haven't seen or at least observed any sort of like, there's no identity politics that is, or any sort of overt, there's no overt messaging. I mean, I guess you could read into the plundered mines as some sort of like, comparison to lithium mines, on Earth, and how, we plunder parts of, we plunder our resources here on planet Earth, but there's no messaging. There's nothing that's like on the nose saying, gee, it's terrible that we did this on this planet and all these children are left behind. Like nothing like that. It's just, everything is played very matter-of-factly. And
so they don't have a situation where a bunch of refugees are taken to the Outer Rim only to be flown to Coruscant.
Yeah, just some sort of lame thing. Yeah, exactly. None of that bullshit. Even at the end of Solo had.
Andre finally got it.
Yeah. But the end of Solo had like some lame thing about like energy, and it's like Solo is god awful. I freaking hated that film. I don't think I'm alone in that. But like, that sort of messaging hit you over the head. I didn't see any there. There's stuff like stuff with Mon Mothma on Coruscant that's interesting. This sort of political intrigue, but it's definitely like a thriller. It is in the tone to like the Bourne films in that sense, in a good way. I just wonder how fans are going to take it. And, I will say this, I'm invested to continue watching. I'm invested, and Kenobi I begrudgingly watched only because the audience on my own channel at Film Threat wanted me to continue watching it. So I did it I took the hit for them. But you won't have to twist my arm to continue to watch Andor. I want to see what happens.
And it's funny you say it's like the Bourne movies, because Gilroy had directed at least 3 or 4 of them. So right. I mean, he's a competent filmmaker, right? So that's a plus. That's where I could see this not looking as bad. I'm glad to hear it's not as much member-berry bullshit, because that's the kind of thing that's really gotten him in this point where I'm just like, yeah, all it is just, that's where I didn't really feel the whole thing with Luke that everybody else did. My reaction was almost the opposite of everybody else. Everybody else was like, yeah, yay, Luke. And I'm like, oh no, Luke. That was kind of my reaction when I saw it live. But I think the bigger question on everybody's mind, and this was the question on my mind, when we get to that dinner party with Mon Mothma, will there be twerking?
There's no twerking. There's not. In fact, it's almost like devoid of
twerking Twi'leks at all.
No twerking Twi'leks. No, there's none of that. I mean,
so there's no Megan Thee Stallion cameo.
No, there's none of that. There are moments of levity, but that's it. No jokes, no overt humor, no one-liners, like none of that stuff. But just a couple moments of levity, and that's about it, just to break the tension. There's a really good shootout that involves Cassian and Stellan Skarsgård's character that is just, right out of, like, you could say a Western or a decent action movie that I thought was well played. And it's just, you're seeing like the dirtiest aspects of this era, like factory workers building, God knows what, and just like how horrible that life is. And just, it's a part of the Star Wars universe we haven't seen explored. So I'm invested. I want to continue watching it. But, if I've learned my lesson, it's to not render a verdict too soon. I think I'm going to pay for that one with She-Hulk.
No, you've been very tempered, I guess is the word I would use.
Yeah, I temper my enthusiasm because, I mean, look, every Marvel Disney Plus series, in my opinion, is shit the bed. So, and I think that also explains like part of like, when you drop a bunch of episodes on you at once, you can have like 1 or 2 that like, those weren't that good, but I like some stuff in this. With this, it was the first 3 episodes is one story. It was really stupid. It would be stupid for them to roll this out as like episode, And there must be some technical reason for them to do it. It might even
I'm
be
sure
a
it's contractual
timing
because
reason. Exactly.
like if they do it more than so many episodes, it's considered a movie probably, and then they got to pay him on a
Right.
totally different scale and all this other
It's like the
bullshit.
Salkinds. The Salkinds tried to trick Richard Donner into making 2 movies with one 300-page Superman script. You remember that? You know that?
Yeah, they're like, we're gonna pay you $1 million. You're like, okay, cool, for 2 movies. Aha.
Yeah. So yeah, but the first 3 episodes they're dropping it day 1. It is one story, because the way that where they like end the episodes is like, that's not an ending to an episode. That's just stopping That's just stopping. It's very poorly planned out, and I hope that they in the future episodes, there's 8 more beyond this. Thank you, Culture, in there. 24 episodes, 2 seasons.
Yeah.
So there
Paulie
you go.
sent me the info here behind the scenes too.
That's great. Thank you. But I'm really, really, I'm invested and curious to see where this goes, and I'm really curious to see how those of us that like, look, I'm black-pilled on Star Wars. I won't buy anything Star Wars anymore. If anything, I would buy only used things or whatnot. Like I just don't care. Like I feel like it's like maybe I've just sort of grown beyond it and whatever. But like Kenobi had me. Like what does happen to Obi-Wan Kenobi between episode 3 and episode 4, and then they gave us the worst possible Saturday afternoon for kids bullshit that was comically bad. Although it would be really funny. I'm dying to see someone cosplay Obi-Wan Kenobi in Imperial outfit trying to smuggle a 10-year-old girl under his trench coat. If I see that at a convention, I cannot wait to see that. But that was just comically ridiculous. There's 0 of that in the show. The show takes itself seriously. It takes the event seriously. The people are real in this universe. They're not like caricatures, and in many ways feels like an independent film. And I like all of that. How that is going to appeal broadly to people, I don't know. As Grace Randolph pointed out, where are my Easter eggs? Where are my Easter eggs? I really need a member berry so I can do a video. So
tell her to go stick her head up a rabbit's ass and maybe she'll find one.
That's my Grace Randolph impression. So I'm more curious what other people's thoughts are, because I do think it's going to divide people. There are people that are going to go, this is boring, I hate it. Right off the bat, this is boring, I hate it. Why do I care? And then there are other people that are going to say, oh, this is like, to me, it had the tone of like a really good thriller novel, like that sort of slow burn to events that matter. And the stuff with Mon Mothma sort of just gets started, and you're seeing kind of like the political machinations, right? I mean, it's interesting. And like I say, it had sort of a 1930s Germany vibe to it, especially when it comes to like just the designs of certain things felt that way. And you're seeing how like real people lived. So that's all I have to say. I really wanted to.
That was just your brief reaction to the show.
Reaction, a brief 20-minute reaction. Sorry, I am.
No, I was being facetious a bit, but
please.
No, we're not going to stop you if you're going to keep going. So like, yeah,
no. We love it when you vex lyrically. So carry on.
But your opinions, I'm really curious to hear, because if this is successful, is this the direction then that Star Wars goes? Because